Sal Capaccio joining us on the Western Hotline as we gear up for Bills and Bengals and take plenty of your calls as well. Jeremy and Joe, good Wednesday morning. Happy midweek. And Sal, happy back to a game week. I was saying to Joe, maybe it's just the regular Sunday to Sunday routine that feels faster after a couple of Bills losses that came on like Thursdays and bye weeks. But they beat the Steelers, and we're right back to it. Cincinnati this week, and eager to find out the news on Joey Bosa today. That's like the big story of the day, right? To see what the hamstring issue ultimately is.
I think so, guys. Good morning. Yeah, I mean, hard to believe we're already in week 14, right? It's amazing when you think about it. And that would be the number one thing I think we're monitoring as far as new injuries, because I think, obviously still Deion Dawkins still in concussion protocol on Monday. When Sean McDermott said that, kind of gets your eyebrows up a little bit. So you hope that he's okay to go this week, and we'll figure out and see what the status is for him. Dalton Kincaid didn't play again last week, but yeah, Joey Bosa, a new injury now. As you just heard Joe in the update, yesterday, the Bills signed Andre Jones Jr. to the practice squad. He had actually been on the team, on the practice squad. He was released when they signed Shaq Lawson. So if you want to do some math here and just kind of think about the way this normally goes, why would they sign a defensive end to the practice squad? Probably because they're down a defensive end. So that would lead me to Joey Bosa. And it doesn't mean it has to be down for the week, but you start preparing. What the teams do is they start looking at their week of prep. It's not and saying, what do we need as far as who's doing reps and things like that. And it would more indicate to me that they would probably need an extra guy in the practice squad because someone in the practice squad has to take more reps on special teams or on the active roster.
So if Bosa were to be out, Sal, like this matchup specifically too, like the playoff game was one where even with the backup linemen, it was noted a lot after they could not generate a pass rush and Burrow torched them. So in this game, like if you don't have Bosa, this game or beyond, one part of it is who plays, right? And then the other part of it is how do they generate a pass rush with just Greg Rousseau and H.A. Epinesa, and then you're just kind of crossing your fingers, I think, if anybody else is out there.
Yeah, I mean, Javon Solomon, obviously, you still have as a defensive end. You've been using T.J. Sanders, which is also this is problematic, right? And becomes part of the problem because the whole point of T.J. Sanders, you didn't want to keep putting him at defensive end. Sean said a couple weeks ago the goal would be to kick him back inside, but he's been playing a little bit of defensive end. I'm very interested to see about Morgan Fox. He is on the practice squad. I know people have been clamoring for him. He's had 15.5 sacks the last 3 years. They have not elevated him yet. This might be a week where we see Morgan Fox for the first time. They signed him to the practice squad after Michael Hoyt got injured. He was playing the Michael Hoyt role in L.A. before Michael Hoyt before Michael Hoyt in L.A. But I want to temper people's expectations. I don't think he's going to come in and have the impact Michael Hoyt had. But he's a guy that has rushed the passer before, and he is a guy that's put up a few numbers in this league. And I wonder if that's a guy that they would put on the field now. Shaq Lawson obviously is there, but that's not as much of a pass rusher. That is a guy that's really more against the run. So, yeah, some things to figure out this week. And, of course, against a Bengals team that you'd love to be able to take advantage of what's been an offensive line that's given up a lot of sacks over the last several years, including this year. And Joe Burrow back there is going to want to they're going to want to throw the ball. I mean, they're going to want to run the ball, too. They've actually done a good job running the ball, and the Bills haven't stopped it. So, sure, Joey Bosa would be a really big loss. I was thinking more about even though you might – if it comes down to it, though, you might err on the side of caution because you have the Patriots the following week, right? Mm-hmm. And you have Drake May and the way that he's throwing the ball right now. So we'll see how it unfolds this week, guys.
Yeah. Load management for Bosa, Sal. Like we've talked all offseason since they signed him that the idea would be whatever it takes to get him to the playoffs. In that New England game, you might. Not to say that is a playoff game because you're likely to make it either way, but that will have such an impact on how the playoff format maybe plays out that the Bills could say, let's get him in here in this game. And then after that, if there's more load management that would be necessary, they could do that. Sal, I mentioned something the last couple of days, like on the job that Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott are doing here. The defense, it's had its struggles, right? There have been games, there have been halves where they've been run over. And then in the second half, it doesn't really happen that way. And thinking about what they've kind of gone through, all the injuries, and where they are for the season, do you get the same kind of review of what they've done, which is it's been a pretty good year for Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt, considering all that they've had to change on their defense because of injury or because Taylor Rapp's not getting the job done, so Jordan Poyer goes in, and now the decision Shaq Thompson maybe for Terrell Bernard. We'll see where that goes. But to me, they've done a pretty good job piecing together, yes, a defense that struggles to stop the run, and that's an issue, but the pass defense has been, by league standards, has been very good this year, and I just feel like they deserve a lot of credit for what they've done with that unit.
I agree with you. I think that what gets people, though, to get to very quickly, but that comes in is very quick, which is they're still terrible against stopping the run, right? And the numbers say that, and you just mentioned it. They're 30th against the run in the league. They're 31st yards per play against the run. They're number 1 in the NFL in pass defense yards per game. Now, part of that is because teams are running the ball on them and not throwing the ball. But I also want to point to they're 7th in the league in yards per play per pass. So, they're doing a nice job there. I think where I go to on this, Jeremy, is I agree with you. I think one of the issues, though, that I think people probably have when you think about the whole thing is, why did it take so long to get to a couple of things they're doing now? Why is Shaq Thompson better than Terrell Bernard, and why didn't that happen a little bit earlier? Why is Jordan Hancock not playing as much? Why is Max Harrison not playing as much? But I'll say I think in each one of those instances, there are reasons. You might not agree with them or think that they're wrong, but I would say that, first of all, Shaq Thompson's been out of the lineup. I think Terrell Bernard has been banged up. That's been compromising him for sure. But at this point, there's no doubt. I think that it appears to everybody that Shaq Thompson is a better fit for what they need to do right now on defense, and he's playing there, and Terrell Bernard is hurt. So you're already kind of in that spot. Last week, this is a great example. I think last week, they did a great job of understanding what personnel they needed on the field. That was not a Jordan Hancock game. It was a Jordan Poyer game. Jordan Hancock brings you more speed, and we all want to see that. But not in that game last week. That's not a game last week where you want to go with the faster, more athletic safety. That's a more physical downhill safety in the middle of the field in Jordan Poyer. I give them credit for that, to your point, Jeremy, which is understand your personnel. Understand who needs to be on the field at certain times. And I think they've done a really good, to me, that's what they've done a really good job of, really since the bye, since the Atlanta game. When we started to see Hairston come back and Hancock on the field a little bit and Jordan Poyer on the field a little bit and in certain situations, like when they started to do all those things, and Shaq Thompson, I think that they've done a really good job of managing personnel and situations and the understanding. I also think it's very interesting that on Friday, Sean McDermott made a point to say Bobby made a good call there, talking about the strip sack and fumble.
Yeah.
Sean McDermott didn't have the play sheet in his hand for much what I saw on Sunday against the Steelers. I'm wondering if Babbage is strictly calling plays now. I don't know. He says it's a group effort or a team effort, but I thought that was notable.
I've seen some theories online, too, that it just comes down to when McDermott's wearing glasses is when he's calling plays. Sure. And, who knows? I wonder, Sal, the run defense, it is – the way you kind of set it up and describe it, it sounds like how they were on defense for years. Maybe it wasn't this bad in the run defense, but for years it was, this is a top-level defense, and they prioritize stopping the pass. They maybe are okay with being mid-level or even a little below average stopping the run because of what it gives them on the other end. Maybe now they're worse than that, rush defense, but do you feel like if they need to stop it, they have that card to pull? Like Pittsburgh was a game where you knew they were going to try to run it, and they couldn't. And Tampa was a game where, okay, you got run on, but weren't you making the trade of, we'll let you run because we're not going to let Baker Mayfield beat us?
Wasn't that last year's playoff game? They decided they wanted to stop the run, and they effectively
against Baltimore.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting to, Sal. Like if they got into a playoff matchup or a big game down the stretch where they thought we need to stop the run, do you think they could?
Well, my answer is yes, but I think that you'd have to have a compromise of what you're going against the pass. And against certain teams, that's very tough to do, right? So I think this is one of those teams. The Bengals, they've been running the ball very well with Chase Brown lately. Their EPA running really well. If you want to stop the run this week, they can devote population, as you say, to stopping the run and doing what it. But man, now you got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and maybe T. Higgins, we'll see. But you guys know about the passing game. I think the answer to your question is yes, Joe, but I'm going to go back to something Sean McDermott said, which he gets. It's so funny. You're saying this, right? Which you're totally right. And Sean McDermott, from a lot of fans, got criticized, I think. People thought that when he says it like this, people hate hearing it, which is he wants a two-dimensional offense. Because what you're saying is exactly that. It's too tough to defend a two-dimensional offense. The Steelers don't have one. If you want to shut their run game down, Aaron Rodgers ain't beating you through the air really with what they have,
so
right?
You could sell
just go stop Just go stop the run, right? If you want to stop the Baltimore Ravens run, I think you're taking your chances. Now, Lamar's great as a passer. We know that. But, you could take your chances on them giving you the ball a couple of times and making a couple mistakes. No doubt about that. And I think they kind of did that last year. Now in the playoffs, the Ravens actually just they made mistakes. They did a nice job. They made mistakes. I guess what I'm getting at is, though, this is why it is important to have a two-dimensional offense. And this is what Sean McDermott said a while back about the Bills and wanting a two-dimensional offense. And I don't think they have quite the two-dimension they need yet, which is, throwing the ball the way they want to throw it. So I think it does come down to if the Bills really want to stop the run, they can stop the run. At what price and at what compromise are they doing that, though?
Also, do you feel like they can, what does the pass defense become, I guess, if Bosa isn't healthy is another question here, right? I guess the pass rush hasn't been unbelievable the last month of the season, but how are they going to generate that? Because I remember a couple years ago when Von Miller got hurt, they started blitzing a lot more. And I don't know that they'll feel like they can afford to blitz more with this defense. I guess I don't know, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think against this team, though, maybe you have to against the Bengals because we'll see what they can handle, right? I think to me, Joe, that's a week-to-week type of deal. It's a week-to-week basis right there. How much you want to blitz and how much you don't want to blitz. So, we'll see going forward what they want to do. But you're right. They're compromised, in the passing game without Bosa for sure. If they don't have Bosa this week, we'll find out. But I think you're going to have to blitz a little bit then to make up for that. And then maybe this week blitzing might be a little more beneficial because, like I said, their offensive line pass protecting hasn't been that great. But maybe next week it's not. And, Drake May is making these great quick decisions that he can make. So it's interesting. They're going to have to make some decisions here for sure on how they want to deploy their strategy and personnel.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Finally, Sal, one last thing. You'll hear from players today. I'm eager to hear what the players have to say about, now that we know 29 times they called the same play up roughly against Pittsburgh. And, boy, I don't know if you've also been enjoying the fallout in Pittsburgh and what it sounded like there since. Just a little bit of, laughing at what's happening to them. It's a franchise that's won a lot. We know that. But, man, the Bills really... The latest nail in the coffin for this identity crisis of the Steelers and whether or not they should go through massive changes, which it seems like the fan base there is, thinking is long, long overdue.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're talking about Steelers, right? I'm sorry, I lost you for a minute.
I'm talking about the Bills. What I'm interested in is what the Bills have to say about running the same play 29 times. Oh,
I apologize. I'm sorry about that.
And I just went off on a tangent about the Steelers because I can't not do that.
No, that's okay.
But the same play 29 times.
You do what works, right? That's what's working. You do it. And I've talked with Aaron Kromer about this before, and he's been coaching this league a long time. And this happened against Carolina. In fact, I'll tell you the exact conversation. I talked to Aaron Kromer a little bit about when they kept running toss sweep. You know what I mean? Against Carolina. Remember that?
Yep, Carolina.
And I said to Aaron Kromer, I saw him after that game, and I said, Coach, I have never seen a team run toss sweep that much in my life in a game. And he just looked at me with a smile. He goes, well, it was working, so you just keep going to it. And that's what we do. And I said, was it the exact same play? He said, here and there a little bit different. He said, you're trying to give him a little different look, maybe a different formation, but it's pretty much the same play, yes. And if that's what's working, that's what you do, and you lean on it. And then, it's what happens, guys, is there's a byproduct to that too, which is at some point the team's going to stop it. But when they overcommit to stop it, that's when you do something off it. That's setting something up for something else you want to do, right? It's like when the Bills, how many times over the years, we've seen this happen a few times. Bills run tunnel screen, a team jacks up to stop it. All of a sudden, they fake it and they go down the field, and they've scored a couple times that way, right? Yep. With Dalton Kincaid or whatever. It's the same thing. So, yeah, when you demoralize teams when you do that. When you're running the ball like that, the same play over and over again, you're demoralizing a team. I actually had a couple Bills fans say, I can't believe Joe Brady would run the same play. Doesn't he have any other play to run? Why would you not want them to run the same play? Right. He's doing it on purpose. Right? Because it's working. That's what you want to do. Now, you want to have a counterpunch. There's no doubt to it. But if you don't need one, you don't need one. You just keep doing what's working.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. We'll hear from Sean McDermott and players later today. Thanks, Sal.
You got it.
When we get back, all you hear about, of course, is Burrow, Chase, Higgins. When we get back, there's one more name we got to talk about for this matchup that, look out. Cincinnati's got a guy that's on a heater, and the matchup against the Bills might not be a good one. Tell you who that is next.